Kentucky and Tennessee compared. Feeling a hankering for the agricultural life? Or do you find yourself drawn to the mountains, the plains, or the deserts? Do you like city life, or do you want to have no neighbors within 10 miles? We have Tennessee and Kentucky compared with one another from their history to education standards, safety, economy, and culture. On one hand, we have Tennessee, the music-loving, football-crazy, history-filled state with more attractions and features than one could see in a lifetime. On the other, we have Kentucky, the land of horse sales and horse races, bourbon, and Kentucky whiskey. Wondering how they both do when weighed against one another? Look at these findings. The geography. Kentucky. Images as diverse as mining towns, single malt whiskey, climbers, moonshiners, white-suited flag officers, and ladies drinking daiquiris on summer patios, equine breeding, and the Kentucky home match all spring to mind when one thinks of the state of Kentucky. Oddly, the state of Kentucky comprises a mosaic of unique communities and cultures. The winding Bluegrass area around the Lexington, with its nearly unending terrain of white fence posts, farmland, tobacco farms, and grazing land, implies an unflustered and graceful lifestyle more akin to the old Kentucky connections with the early American South than of the state's situation in the fast-paced economy growth of an advanced industrial nation. Northern Kentucky, on the other hand, is a reflection of the state's connection to the urban north due to its mostly German ancestry, suburban model of growth, and direction near urban Cincinnati, Ohio. Tennessee. East, Middle, and West Tennessee are the three grand divisions that Tennesseans recognize due to the state's topographical richness and the resulting variance in economic, political, and cultural characteristics. Famous mountain customs originated in East Tennessee, where the Great Smoky Mountains as well as the Cumberland Plateau dominate the landscape. Main cities in East Tennessee include Chattanooga, Knoxville, and Kingsport. Located in the center of the state, Nashville serves as the economic and cultural hub of Middle Tennessee, an area characterized by flat, fertile plains broken up by gentle rolling hills. Most of West Tennessee consists of flat, fertile ground, and the region's economy has traditionally relied on plantation agriculture, especially cotton. If you're looking for a major city, Memphis is it. Population and area comparison. Tennessee is around 106,752 square kilometers in size, whereas Kentucky is about 102,896 square kilometers, or 96.39% the size of Tennessee. Nevertheless, Tennessee is home to somewhere about 6.3 million people. That's a drop of 2 million Kentuckians out of the state's population. History. Kentucky. When the Union expanded westward, it was Kentucky that was accepted first. There, at the time of its incorporation, its northern and western borders were the low water mark on the north bank of the Ohio River, and its southwestern border was the Tennessee River. Because of the 1818 addition, the Mississippi River is now the southwestern border. The economy and government were both unstable in the early 19th century. There had been a property rush after the Revolution, accompanied by uncertainty and rising prices. Tennessee. Franklin, Tennessee applied to join the Union as a separate state after formerly being a member of the new state of North Carolina after the Revolution. Nevertheless, the Continental Congress, the ruling body of the early United States, denied North Carolina's request for state status because it had revoked its initial annexation of Western Territory. The area downstream of the Ohio River became known as the Territory after the adoption of the modern national constitution. Having Knoxville as this capital, John Sevier as the very first governor, and General Andrew Jackson as its inaugural congressman, Tennessee was the inaugural state recognized from territory status in 1796. Education. Kentucky. In 1775, the borough of Harrodstown, present-day Harrodsburg, became home to Kentucky's first public school. Between the ages of 7 and 16, all children must attend school, and enrollment is free. In 1904, states began collecting taxes specifically for the purpose of funding public schools. Most significantly, the Kentucky Education Reform Act, or KERA, implemented by the state legislature in 1990, mandated that all school districts receive money according to their student populations. Every school child in Kentucky should have the same educational opportunity. School authorities, the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, as well as the Department of Kentucky School Director General, were established to substitute the generation-old position of a voted-into-office superior of public teaching. This legislation impacted practically every aspect of state schooling, from syllabus to management. Tennessee. The public school system receives a substantial percentage of the state's tax revenue. Elementary and secondary education are both overseen by the State Board of Education. In the 80s, Tennessee became a national pioneer in education reform because of its Better Schools initiative, which offered financial incentives to teachers who pursued professional development and improved student achievement. The late 20th century also saw a rise in the number of states that mandated primary school students take art, music, and PE classes, while simultaneously raising the bar for high school students to meet in math and science. Nonetheless, despite their persistent reliance on earnings from just small sales and real estate taxes, Tennessee institutions have remained plagued from inadequate overall financing. Safety and livability. Kentucky. While the level of violent criminality in the Bluegrass state is lower than the nationwide and local norms and is one of the smallest in the country, it has increased by 18% in the last year. In spite of this, Kentuckians continue to worry about commercial crime at higher rates than the national average. Tennessee. Most Americans don't give as much thought to personal safety as people in Tennessee do. It coincides with the increase in violent crime, but stands in stark contrast to the 3-year downward trend in property crime. The best places to live in Tennessee have far lower crime rates than the state and country averages do. People. Kentucky. More than 90% of Kentuckians claim European heritage. The majority of the early white immigrants in the state were of Anglo-Saxon or Scots-Irish ancestry. The Bluegrass territory was the first to become populated since it had the greatest agricultural soil. As the Eastern Highlands are the least fertile area in the country, they were populated last. German immigrants and others from New England as well as the Middle Atlantic regions traveled down the Ohio River throughout the middle of the 19th century, settling in North Kentucky and other locations along the river. Tennessee. Majority of Tennesseans are of white European ancestry. There is a sizable minority of African Americans. Very few people may claim Asian, Native American, or European heritage. However, the Hispanic presence has expanded rapidly since the turn of the century. The earliest Europeans to arrive were mostly of English and Scotch-Irish descent, but there were also many Germans among them. Slaves of African heritage were introduced to the New World by European settlers, and their numbers swelled in the 19th century as cotton production spread over Middle and West Tennessee. Many black people departed Tennessee in the mid-20th century, while large groups of white people came there. 4/5 of Tennessee's inhabitants were white inside the 20th century, with around a sixth being African American. Economy. Kentucky. The many regional economies of Kentucky reflect the state's multifaceted industrial, commercial, mining, agricultural, touristic, and service sectors. The Bluegrass is a prosperous area with many factories and convenient services. Economically, the Pennyroyal is as diverse and rich as the rest of the state, although the western coalfield and mountain areas are more vulnerable to fluctuations in coal demand. In times of drought or low agricultural prices, which might happen sometimes, residents of the purchase can really feel the pinch. Despite the fact that manufacturing is the state's largest source of revenue, eastern Kentucky and a few other places have almost no industrial activity. Tennessee. Textile, tobacco, and cattle were the primary cash goods of Tennessee until around 1940. Industry in Tennessee did not really take off until the 30s and 40s, despite the fact that fabric and iron manufacturing factories had been constructed in the 19th century, mostly in East Tennessee. The federally controlled Tennessee Valley Authority's TVA development of hydropower generation and power stations and World War II's catalyzing effect on industrial production in nearly all regions both played played significant roles in propelling this expansion. After the middle of the 20th century, the service industry became the primary driver of economic growth in Tennessee. Although the federal administration is actively involved with the TVA as well as the U.S. Department of Energy, the growth of communication and high-technology industries in Tennessee hasn't been as fast as in other nearby states. Culture. Kentucky. Many Kentuckians prefer more laid-back, rural, and southern ways of life compared to their urban counterparts north of the Ohio River. Images of hillbillies, rural mountain inhabitants, moonshiners, and rustic log houses from the past are often associated with the eastern mountain area. Yearly carnival and celebrations including such hillbilly days in Pikeville, the Black Gold Festival in Hazard, and the Morgan County Sorghum Festival are held to honor the region's rich cultural heritage and the contributions of its people. The Eastern Mountain area is well known not just for its celebrations but also for the numerous ancient family burial cemeteries that dot the landscape. In other sections of the state, you'd be hard-pressed to find a cemetery like this. Tennessee. Many influential artists have developed from different parts of Tennessee due to the state's regionalized culture, which reflects the state's economic, social, and geographical diversity. East Tennessee's music, crafts, and legends owe a debt to the white European pioneer culture, while West Tennessee's music, crafts, and tales owe a debt to the cultural influence of African Americans. The people of Middle Tennessee have fostered a diverse array of cultural institutions. Music in Tennessee has always been ahead of the national trend. Various rural Appalachian musics with Scottish-Irish roots coexist in the East with more mainstream country music forms. Conclusion. Despite being in almost the same geographical region, both the states discussed here are miles apart in some respects, like in culture, education, and economy. Still, Tennessee and Kentucky have had a long and rich history within the United States and continue to contribute a lot to the country. Thank you for watching this video. Please don't forget to subscribe, comment, and turn on the notification bell.